Welcome to another episode of Bula Wellness. I hope that you have been receiving all the information that we have shared in the past episodes. And I also hope that you've been putting all these into practice. I also want to extend warm greetings to everyone watching from across our beautiful country. Thank you for joining us. Today, we will discuss contributions that excessive salt intake has had on our health and well-being, and how it affects us in developing non-communicable diseases, NCD. WHO guidelines on salt and potassium provide thresholds for healthy intake. The guidelines also outline measures for improving diets and preventing NCDs in adults and children. In 2004, the Global Strategy on Diet, Physical Activity and Health was endorsed by WHO. It called on governments, WHO, international partners, the private sector, and civil society to take action at global, regional, and local levels to support healthy diets and physical activity. In 2010, the World Health Assembly endorsed a set of recommendations on the marketing of foods and non-alcoholic beverages to children. Countries were guided in designing new policies and strengthening existing ones to reduce the impact of the marketing of unhealthy food on children. In 2011, world leaders committed to reducing people's exposure to unhealthy diets. The commitment was made through a political declaration at the high-level meeting of the United Nations General Assembly on the prevention and control of NCDs. In 2012, the World Health Assembly adopted 6 global nutrition targets, including the reduction of stunting, wasted, and overweight in children, the improvement of breastfeeding, and the reduction of anemia and low birth weight. In 2013, the World Health Assembly agreed to global voluntary targets for the prevention and control of NCDs, which include a halt to the rise in diabetes and obesity, and a 30% relative reduction in the intake of salt by 2025. The Global Action Plan for the Prevention and Control of Non-Communicable Diseases 2013 to 2020 gives guidance to achieve the targets, with many countries now seeing a rapid rise in obesity among infants and children. WHO set up a Commission on Childhood Obesity in May 2014. Increasing production of more processed food, rapid urbanization, and changing lifestyles are transforming dietary patterns. Highly processed foods are increasing in availability and becoming more affordable. People around the world are consuming more energy-dense foods, that is high in saturated fats, trans fats, sugars, and salt. Salt is the primary source of sodium, and increased consumption is associated with hypertension and increased risk of heart disease and stroke. At the same time, as their eating patterns shift, people are consuming less fruit and vegetables, and the dietary fiber, such as whole grains, that was a key component of healthy diet. Fruit and vegetable contains potassium, which contributes to reduced blood pressure. Salt in the diet can come from processed foods, either because they are particularly high in salt, such as ready-made meals, processed meats like bacon, ham and salami, cheese, salted snack foods, and instant noodles, or because they are consumed frequently in large amounts, such as bread and processed cereal products. Salt is also added to food during cooking or at the table as sauces and table salt. However, some manufacturers are reformulating recipes to reduce the salt content of their products, and consumers should read food labels and choose products low in sodium. In Fiji, we are eating too much salt. Results of a recent salt study in Fiji shows the average intake to be more than double the WHO recommendations of below 5 grams per day. We are at 11 grams per day. Having a salt intake of more than 5 grams will lead to high blood pressure. If blood pressure is not controlled, we end up with strokes and heart disease. We are privileged to have Ms. Aarti Pillai, a lecturer in food science at FNU, and previously worked as a salt project officer with Sea Pond. Thank you for joining us today, Aarti. Just to add things off, how does salt cause NCD?
Salt is often overlooked as a dietary villain. Salt is made up of sodium and chloride, and it is the sodium component of the salt that is of concern for public health. And if salt intake is increased over a period of time, it can lead to increased risk of high blood pressure, and if blood pressure is not controlled, it can lead to heart diseases, stroke, and other diseases such as kidney diseases, and high salt intake can also lead to osteoporosis as well.
Thank you for that, Aarti. Amazing how a simple thing like salt can cause such a drastic problem in people's lives. We will discuss this further after this. Welcome back to Bula Wellness on FBC TV. Our guest this evening is Mrs. Aarti Pillai, a lecturer at the Fiji National University and was previously a salt project officer with Sea Pond Group at the Fiji National University. Today, we are talking about salt reduction program. Aarti, what are the misconceptions on salt reduction?
There is a number of misconceptions on salt reduction. One being is the source of sodium or salt in the diet. We feel that most of the salt that is in our diet comes from the salt that is added at the table or in the cooking. But there is a number of hidden sources of salt or hidden salt that is found in a lot of processed and packaged foods that are sold. And these being things like soya sauce, instant noodles, canned fish, canned meat, a number of sauces that we add in our cooking or eat with our foods, which can be loaded with salt. Also, that we think that only foods that taste salty have salt in it. There are a number of things like breakfast cereals, breads, sweet biscuits, etc., which also have quite a high amount of salt in them. So it is very important that we read labels, and especially the nutrition information panel, and look for sodium in the labels for products before buying them to see what is the amount of sodium in these products that we are purchasing.
Okay. What would your recommendations on salt intake on a daily basis be?
WHO recommends that for good health and well-being, we need less than 5 grams of salt a day, which is about 1 level teaspoon of salt. And this 1 level of teaspoon of salt in a day comes from all the meals, all the 3 meals that we have, all the snacks, packaged products, also any of the drinks that we might have. In Fiji, the recent study had showed that our intake is more than this, double the amount of recommended amount of salt. And I think it's important that we look at our dietary habits and reduce this salt intake in our diets and from processed and packaged foods.
What would you suggest be measures we take in the home to reduce salt intake?
There's a number of things that we can do. One is reducing the amount of salt that we add to while cooking, trying to reduce use of salt on top already cooked meals and adding salt at the table, reducing our consumptions of packaged and processed foods, having healthy snacking habits. Instead of relying on packaged products for snacking, we need to look to our more seasonal fruits and vegetables that are available, swap to unsalted nuts. We have things like EV, corn, boiled peanuts in the market. We need to use more of that. And also, while we are eating out, to ask for reduced salt meals, not adding salt at the table is very important. And like we had mentioned, to reduce consumption of packaged products. If you are bringing packaged products home and cooking and having added cooking to it, we should ensure that we do not add in extra salt because it already has salt in those products.
Can we control the salt intake in restaurants and fast food outlets?
Most definitely. Mostly when we are buying takeaway meals, we can, or requesting for takeaway meals, we can ask them to put less salt in the meals while they're preparing it for us, or not to add extra salt while they're packaging the products, especially like things like when we are taking fish and chips or chicken and chips. They what happens is that they just sprinkle the salt on, and one of the things that we do is we add on salt without tasting the food. So I think it's important that we reduce any extra salt that we put on the food.
How can we reduce salt by our food manufacturers and processors?
We had done quite a bit of work with the food manufacturers where they establish sodium targets for certain products, and they're reducing this sodium content of the products. And as consumers, we need to go and look for products which have reduced, which in the front of pack, which says reduced in salt, reduced in sodium, less salt, or reduced by a certain percentage. And because it's important that consumers start using these products and demanding for these products so that the manufacturers can get in more reduced sodium products on the shelves. And also when consumers are out buying these products, it's, for example, if you're buying tinned fish, it's important that you look for sodium in the label, look at a number of different brands of the same product and see which one has the least amount of sodium and purchase that product.
True.
This will also encourage manufacturers to get in products which have reduced sodium.
So, it's interesting what you say is that salt is an acquired taste. Are there alternatives to salt?
Yes, saltiness is an acquired taste. The more we eat, the more we get adapted to it. Similarly, it works in the reverse way. As we gradually reduced our salt intake, our taste buds adjust to it. Also, like instead of adding salt while cooking or while we are reducing it, we can use alternatives like we can put to flavor the food, such as ginger, garlic, different types of mints, lemon, herbs, or different types of spices that we have that will also add flavor to your food without just adding salt to it.
Right.
And as you are gradually reducing the salt in your meals, your taste buds get adjusted to it as well.
Okay. Finally, Aarti, if you had any advice for our viewers tonight regarding our topic, what would it be?
I would say salt is it's very important. It's very important to reduce our salt in the diet, especially with the increasing rates of NCDs in Fiji. And it's not a difficult task. It's only limited to what we eat through our diet. So it's important that we increase the fruit and vegetable consumption in our diet, visit the market more than the supermarket, reduce use of packaged products, packaged and processed products, and also try and develop more healthier snacking habits.
Thank you very much for this very insightful and educational talk, Aarti. I'm sure our viewers have learned quite a lot today. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
More coming up right after this. Welcome back to Bula Wellness on FBC TV. Earlier, Aarti Pillai, our guest, highlighted the importance of reducing salt intake in Fiji. We are consuming over double our recommended needs, and it is no wonder that strokes, hypertension, and heart diseases are so rampant in our communities. People are dying before their 50th birthdays, and that is very serious. You need to take action now if you want to live healthy. The recommendations are as follows. Fiji has adopted the WHO Best Buys approach to take steps to reducing the population's salt reduction to 5 grams per day by 2025, way back in 2011. Unfortunately, nobody is doing what is required of them at all levels. The Health Ministry must work with the other ministries to implement laws on front of pack labeling of processed and canned food. Junk food advertising must be controlled as priority if we want to live healthy. Politicians under the pressure of the food industry have stalled implementation of very worthy laws which protect the consumers and the public health benefits. Junk food advertising to your children changes their perception of what is good and what is bad food. A multi-sectorial group comprising of the Pacific Research Center for Prevention of Obesity and Non-Communicable Diseases, known as CPOND, National Food and Nutrition Center, the Consumer Council, World Health Organization, and the Ministry of Health continue to work with different sectors within the food industries. Consumers, restaurants, and bakeries to reduce salt in processed foods. Restaurants and takeaway meals, bread and bakery products, and educating consumers on the general dangers of salt and ways of reducing salt in diets. It has not been an easy task as the groups have profit margins to meet and public health issues are not their primary concern many a times. However, we all live with hope that our leadership remains strong in future. There was a further reduction of 15% salt in noodles initially in 2011, and this was effected, but this has not been followed up, unfortunately. As discussed, we can reduce salt intake at home. As parents and elders, you can reduce the amount of salt you are currently adding to food whilst preparing it. Avoid adding salt at the table while eating at home and in restaurants. Reducing consumption of processed food like canned foods, instant noodles, sauces like soy sauce, tomato sauce, and chili sauce will assist. Avoid adding salt to processed food whilst preparing them as they already contain salt. Practice healthier snacking habits by snacking on fruit, not forgetting our seasonal fruit, vegetables and unsalted nuts, EV, corn, dates, boiled peanuts, wutu, instead of salted and fried snacks. Stop buying all the junk food you bring home as part of your groceries. Stop being a poor parent. Try some of your traditional meals with more vegetables, fruit, and legumes when eating out. Fast food and fried processed food should only be an occasional treat, not a regular meal if you want to remain healthy. Mothers, wives, and even husbands, when cooking, can learn to cook with less salt and use alternatives. There is a general perception that reducing the amount of salt will make them less tasty. However, natural alternatives like dhania, mint, garlic, chilies, lemon, ginger, and curry leaves can be added to increase the flavor of food. Go and give it a go. In supermarkets these days, you see such a huge variety of products and many brands of the same product. How does one pick a low salt product while doing their grocery shopping? Salt is made up of sodium and chloride. Sodium is the component that is usually of concern to public health. Sodium is listed on the nutrition information panel, usually found on the back of the packs, along with other nutrients like carbohydrates, fat, and proteins. Brine is a concern. Consumers can look out for messages like reduced in salt or reduced in sodium, no salt added, or no sodium added on the front of packages, and purchases these over the brands of similar product which contain salt. Look at the nutrition panel information and compare sodium content of different brands of the same product, such as canned fish. Choose one with the lowest sodium per 100 grams or 100 mils. Also, people need to note that not only salty products have sodium, but sweet products, sweetened biscuits, even bread, some butter also have sodium. Canned fish can be rinsed with tap water once or even twice before being put into the pot for cooking. This dilutes the salt in the brine, which is salty water, to conserve it in the can. Unsalted or low salt butter needs to be marketed as done abroad if we aspire to live healthy. More information on salt can be developed and is also available to consumers and can be accessed from various websites. Finally, I hope that you will take heed of this important information and use them to improve your lives and those of your loved ones. Unfortunately, time has caught up with us again, and I hope you have enjoyed our program today. If you have queries about the show or the topic today, you can contact us on Facebook, Bula Wellness FBC TV, or write to us at bulawellness@fbc.com.fj. Make sure to join us again the same time next week for our next episode. Until then, goodbye.